Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour. I'm Britton. I'm here today on episode 11. I'm here with Jeff Provine. Did I get it right?
You got it.
Very good. He was actually my teacher for a little bit, but I wanted to have him on because he likes a lot of things that I like, such as paranormal stuff and comic book stuff. So how you doing today? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Kind of floating. I had COVID the last couple of weeks, and I'm bouncing back and feeling good, except for that energy level. I just can't get through the afternoon without just crashing.
Ouch.
So yeah, everybody warned me about it, and they're warning me to this day, and I still don't believe them. I just need to buck up and stop being lazy and get back to work. Which is not actually what I need to do. What I need to do is take a break and get a breather and recuperate so we can have plenty of time to do ghost tours here in a few weeks.
So what is it exactly that you do? I've seen. It's funny. After I had your class, I saw your name everywhere. It was like I was seeing your name everywhere. I know you're at Barnes and Noble. I saw like the local books. I saw that you had written a good chunk of them. Mostly ghost stuff.
So spooky stuff. Got the stack here of nonfiction things and a couple of extra bits. So, gosh, where even to start? Well, I guess on this paranormal side, I do ghost tours here in Central Oklahoma. I've been gathering spooky stories since about 2009. I started a little ghost tour at OU, which we're getting ready to do for its, I guess this will be the 13th season, so that's kind of a fun number for it. Yeah, and just kind of gathering the stories, stories a lot of people may have heard here or there. A lot of them have never been written down before. It's just kind of oral folklore. But I really have gotten on this project of collecting as much as possible to see what's all out there, and it's astonishing.
Yeah, I remember. I've always wanted to stay at the Skirvin. I've heard that's haunted. I've heard that's haunted, allegedly.
Yeah, I've heard several stories. Because they have the famous Effie ghost, so we can go into detail on that if you want, as well as Mr. Skirvin's supposed to show up. His oldest daughter, Pearl Skirvin Mesta. A little boy ghost running around, and then babies crying and some other miscellaneous poltergeist type stuff. So, not bad. And I've talked to a lot of people who say it's the best night of sleep they've ever had. They've had any spooky stuff going on. So, whatever happens, I guess.
What attracted your interest in ghosts and folklore and all that?
Yeah, well, I've always liked spooky stuff, and magical realism is technically my favorite genre. But all the Twilight Zone and spooky stories and ghost stories and fairy tales and all that. Though when I did study abroad in England back when I was in college, every little town has a ghost tour because they have 1,000 years of history and dead people to talk about. So, yeah, and like, oh, this is awesome. And when I got back, I thought, there might be one or two stories here in Oklahoma. I wonder if we could find out some more about this. So I started looking around, and tons of stories. I was teaching English at OU at that point, and had some time during office hours. I'd go and do a little extra research and piece it together. And that 2009 was our first kind of 2 or 3 ghost tours, just walking around campus. And now it's expanded to do tours in Norman, Oklahoma City, and periodically do one in Shawnee too.
Oh, like what? Like, are you saying like OU itself is haunted, or just other areas in Norman?
Tons downtown, which is where we do the regular Norman tour. But campus is jam packed with ghosts. We talk about Professor Bogus up in Old Holmberg Hall, playing the organ and coming to student performances. We talk about White Hand Hall and all the EVPs and poltergeist activity. Talk about the doors rattling at Evans Hall and the old fires that destroyed the previous buildings that used to stand there, the old university halls. Ellison Hall, probably the most famous one, with the little boy roller skating around up on the top floor. Well, I guess the most famous would really be the one in Bazell, the library ghost. So,
I've never even known of this. I followed their sports team, so there you go.
Well, Even the sports team, Mex, the first mascot, the little Boston Terrier dog from 1916 to the 20s, when he passed away, they buried him on the 50-yard line. And they say that you can still hear him bark and howl during games, which I haven't, but I have had lots of students who were football players, and several of them swore up and down that they could feel a dog come up and lick their fingers. And my favorite story about it, this sports photographer, big telescopic lens and stuff, he was saying, hey, you do those ghost tours on campus, you need to look into the stadium. So I'm standing there, and I feel this dog come and lean up against my leg, because I have dogs at home, and I know what that feels like, but I look down, and there's no dog. Do you think there could be a ghost? And I was like, well, let me tell you about Mex and this whole thing. And so he didn't even have an idea about it, but it gave some extra evidence behind Mex still hanging out.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries growing up, and I watched the X-Files a little later on. Also, I've always really been fascinated by ghosts and UFOs and all that. Do I believe in them? I'm not sure, but it's always fascinating to think about, at least for me anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's tons of stuff that, even just material stuff that I don't know or understand, let alone what else is out there in the big world, right? So, stuff that nobody really has their head wrapped around. And there's a lot of evidence, so something's definitely going on. I don't know if we have exactly all the details that we could piece together and say, okay, this is how ghosts work, and Ghostbuster style ghost traps and things. I don't know about that, but something's going on. Like, I'm curious always to find out more. I also get really spooked out about it stuff too, so that's fun.
I also really enjoy ghost stories. Have you ever read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Oh yeah, that was pretty foundational in my experience.
I was about to say that was a very formative time for me. I saw those surprisingly nightmare-inducing illustrations for a children's book, for a book that was intended for children. And
which they re-released them. What was it, 2008 or so, and they redid the art.
Yeah, wasn't as memorable though.
No. But they weren't getting banned from so many libraries, so I guess that was a good
silver linings, I guess.
Yeah.
I remember one of my first book buddies when I was a kid. She read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and there was that fat lady, that really like monstrous woman. It was gave me the creeps when I was a kid. What?
The Red Room, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Did you watch the movie?
I actually haven't. I'm kind of nervous it'll spoil the experience of the book. Of the books, I mean. I haven't seen the movie though.
Yeah, I've seen it.
The costume design looked really good though.
I'm gonna watch it again right now.
The costume design looked really good though, from what I saw of it. I also love Harold, the story.
Yeah, that's my go-to. That one to this day.
It's fun one. It's a good one you could tell around the fire if you wanted.
Yeah.
I think all of them are good for that. Also remember the one with the vampire, or they think it was a vampire. I don't remember exactly what it was. The girl was in her room and she saw that guy walking up to her window.
Oh yeah.
That was one that really freaked me out as a kid. I was always looking out my window. I mean, I live in suburbia. They were living out in like the country somewhere. But I love those books.
So good. The Cat's Eyes always got me one. The one where the black car drives up and these shadows rush in and then storm out carrying this heavy thing, and somebody tries to stop them and they have these bright cat's eyes. And
yeah.
As they leave, the doctor comes down and says the person's died. And what's going on there?
Yeah, it's just like I don't think anything like Scary Stories has ever been. I don't think they've ever tried to do something like Scary Stories again. Or if they have, I haven't read them. But I enjoy those books.
Well, shoot, back in 2010 16, I teamed up with an artist, Ellis Goodson, here in Oklahoma City. It's for these 31 ghost stories. Initially, I was just doing it as a writing project, so like, just tell a ghost story every day, and then teamed it up, and he had spooky illustrations he could do for it.
Oh.
And so each one of the stories are little bits of urban legends, kind of like the scary stories to tell in the dark. Not quite as specifically folklore bound versus just kind of retelling of stuff, like the diner where they serve people hamburgers, hamburgers made out of people, right? Yeah, it was a really fun project, and maybe I'll do some more of those someday. But glad to see some Ellison's spooky take.
Yeah, it's a I enjoy those books quite a bit. They were formative for me. I also read a lot of illustrated classics when I was a kid. Like I read Oliver Twist, and I read Tom Sawyer for class. I remember really liking that one. So I liked looking at illustrations when I was a kid, and that really got me into reading. So there you go.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, graphic narrative, man, there's study after study. People are like, you need to do this. This works for tons and tons of people. And then for whatever reason, there's always the stigma of, it has pictures. It must not be good, or it's for kids or something.
Yeah, I mean, I like looking at the illustrations, and then the stories turned out to be pretty good, too. So there you go.
Yeah.
Then I started reading just regular books, but sometimes I like going back and reading illustrated books from time to time, see if they've. I also read The Magic Tree House when I was a kid. I don't know if you ever read those.
Just a couple of them. I just missed them. I should probably go back and catch up on some.
I didn't get that. I have this bad habit of being late to things. I didn't read the Harry Potter books till I was in middle school. I enjoyed those quite a bit too. Wasn't a childhood staple for me. I was a big Star Wars kid. Still am. Can you hear me?
I hope it kind of buzzed out there for a second.
Oh.
Yeah, just kind of froze up.
Oh, I just said I was a Star Wars kid growing up.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Big Star Wars kid. That's where I first started writing was Star Wars fan fiction back in the 90s.
Still am, even though it's Star Wars is in a weird place right now.
Very true. Yeah.
I think they have a gold mine for ideas. They're just not capitalizing on it. I don't know. They keep regurgitating the Skywalker stuff. I'm like, you got a big universe there. You can do whatever you want. I think anyway.
Yeah, and we'll see what they seem to want to branch out with Andor and a couple more series coming out.
Yeah.
So we'll see what Disney Plus gives to us, I guess.
Last Star Wars thing I saw was the Kenobi series.
Yeah.
Because I've wanted for a long time to see Ewan McGregor come back, and I had a fun time watching it.
Oh yeah, they definitely had a fun time filming it. It looked like everybody was having a blast.
Oh yeah.
It was good. It was a little uneven, I thought, but kind of like they took the script for the movie they had planned before Solo didn't do so well and stretched it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a little uneven, but like the cool stuff was really, really cool, and the not so cool stuff was okay. So
yeah,
it's all up here. We're doing all right. More of that, please.
Yeah, I first met you. You taught the history of the comic book class at OCCC. Do you still teach that, or is that
Yes, yeah, we got it scheduled for here in just a couple weeks, starting up late fall.
Oh, very cool. I've been a big comic fan ever since I was a kid. I liked action figures when I was a kid, and I remember the story like it was yesterday. It was either a Spider-Man toy or it was the Fantastic Four, and it had the first issue, and it was Jack Kirby's illustration of the monster with Fantastic Four fighting it. I've long lost it now, but I was like, ooh, I like these picture books.
Yeah. So,
Took me a while
really
to figure
cool.
out the lingo. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, it's just thinking about my own comics. I mean, the new Superhero comics a whole bunch, and then a little bit of Star Wars comics, the old Dark Horse comics.
Yeah.
But after that, you know, I wasn't super into it until I started doing a webcomic, The Academy, back in college, and carried that on for quite a while, and that kind of got me into how comics work and everything, and Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud, and like, oh, okay, I can see this, and then that's kind of, I guess, led me in the backward direction from making comics into reading comics instead of the other way around.
Yeah, actually, people have always told me to read Understanding Comics, so you gave me the final push to read it for the class. So, and it was a really good book. I enjoyed it.
It's fascinating, and he's got a couple more reinventing comics and making comics and the future of comics or something. Anyway, those get really cerebral and detailed.
I got making comics up there.
About it. So I should probably read those with some more note taking next time.
Yeah, I thought it was a good book. At least Understanding Comics. I have making comics up there, but I haven't had the itch to read it yet. I haven't actually been reading a lot of I started the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen recently because it's one of the few Alan Moore products I haven't read. So.
Ooh, that is probably my favorite Alan Moore when it comes down to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an Alan Moore. I'm an Alan Moore fan, you could say. It was like one of the first writers who I really paid attention to in comics. Well, him and Robert Kirkman, because I'm a big Walking Dead fan. So.
Yeah. There's some I need to read all the way through. Woo.
Also Invincible.
That's a major project.
Also Invincible's a lot of fun too. But yeah, I got League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm enjoying it so far, though. It feels more like a more conventional comic book, where I sometimes feel that Alan Moore's comics feel different from regular comics. You know, I mean that's fine. I enjoy. Kevin O'Neill's art is certainly worth the. I like how he uses the comic medium, and Kevin O'Neill's art is really good in this.
Oh yeah. So, and all the literature research and every single panel has Easter eggs from some 1870s bit of literature that nobody's ever heard of, but is awesome if you're one of the 3 people that has.
Yeah, I saw the movie first, which is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just took me a while to finally get to the comic, because, I don't know, I guess it was one of those I never got around to.
Yeah, they're so different. Completely different beasts, really.
Yeah, the movie's like more of like a straight, it's more like your standard superhero fare. Like this is there's a lot of talking in the movie, but there's a lot of talking in this as well. But it's more what's the word? Cerebral, I guess. I don't know. The characters are more. Dorian Gray is not in this, at least in the at least not yet. I got this omnibus version because apparently omnibuy is where to go at these days.
I mean, there's so much material. You gotta double check and triple check to make sure everything gets included.
I think these are just the first and second volume, though. I don't know. It's from DC. I'm sure Moore is very pleased about that.
I don't think he's been pleased about anything ever.
Though apparently, I've seen photos of him enjoying Sundays. So I mean, maybe give him a Sunday. That'll probably cheer him up.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't cheer? So.
I also reread Watchmen the other day.
Looking back at my comics collection I got.
Which, I mean, not too much to say about that hadn't already been said. It's fantastic. Um, but I mean, you taught a lot. There was some stuff I already knew. There was some other stuff I didn't know. So there you go. Because like you, I'm also really fascinated with the history of comic books as a medium. Um, I didn't really know about the. I knew about Little Nemo. I've never read it. It looks interesting. I know of Winsor McCay, but I didn't really know too much about. I didn't know it was like a big hit back in his day. Certainly didn't know it was like the first animated movie.
Yeah, isn't that wild to think? Just
Mm-hmm.
the whole comics evolving out of political cartoons, and so they're telling these stories, and movies are coming up at the same time, and there's so much potential crossover. Which, if it weren't for World War I mean, we'd be a decade ahead of where we are.
Possibly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the. Is it the kid in the little or the yellow jacket? I forget what it's called. They called it the first comic.
The yellow kid, yeah.
The yellow kid, yeah.
Yeah.
I've only heard of it. I didn't really know what it was. I don't know if it would appeal to modern audiences or not, but
that's a good question. I mean, he's so surreal that I think he'd do pretty well on TikTok.
I'm always curious about if older things would do well in our time, like Winsor McCay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never read Little Nemo. I'd like to go into Winsor McCay. I've had friends who've told me he's good, but I've just never had the chance to dive in. It's I mean, as much as I have read, there's still stuff yet out there. I haven't read like Carl Barks. I was actually talking this over with a friend of mine. Was it the Good Duck Artist? Because they couldn't put their names on it. Was it the Good Duck Artist or the Only Good Duck Artist?
Don't know, actually.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I'm sure it's Googleable. Yeah.
I'm sure it's Googleable, yeah. Yeah, I've also... What?
Or Bing or Yahoo. Those are out there, too.
Or, what's that one for the people who are paranoid of Google? DuckDuckGo?
Oh, yeah. I've not used it, so... I don't know.
My grandma uses it. I'm like, Nanny, I don't think they care what... I don't think Google cares what you're looking up.
Probably not, but whatever works.
But hey, she's not hurting anybody. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, what sparked your interest in comic books as a medium? I know you said you had a comic called The Academy. Like, what was that about?
Yeah. So that was a daily strip. So it's still kind of sticking in the newspaper comics things that I grew up with, Calvin and Hobbes specifically. So, telling adventures of these 4 kids at a magnet school, which I went to the Oklahoma School of Science and Mathematics up the road. So we had very wild times studying super hard until we were sick and, locked away and on campus and never leaving. And so really getting to know people and survival type things. So with all those jokes, it translated pretty well into a comic. Originally, I wanted to write a Great American Novel about it, and wrote about a page, and I was like, this is terrible. It's not going to work. The stories do not translate. But they did great as a comic. And then from that got me into doing the history of comics class. They had their call for freshman seminars at OU saying, hey, if you have a topic that you're an expert in, come and teach it. So which freshman seminars, kind of all about, getting into college, special topics, so you can get the skills of paper writing and pacing yourself on readings and all that. But about whatever, like their CIA class is really interesting. Another guy's been doing abnormal psychology in film, reviewing stuff you'd learn in Intro to Psychology, but with examples from film. And very cool classes. So History of Comics came out of that, and now that I'm a professor over at OCCC, and brought it over too, as we're expanding different humanities possibilities.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. And then also, I guess in long form, we got Okie Comics that started up 2017. So since I've been doing this comic, I went to SoonerCon and a bunch of the other cons around Oklahoma, and we have just so much talent. It's unbelievable. Just
Yeah,
how
I
many
met
creators right now.
I met Robert Wilson the fourth, the last con I went to, which was about a month ago now. Well, I met him at a con a few years ago, but now I met him again, and that was cool. You meet a lot of interesting people at cons. I haven't gone as much because of COVID, but
Right.
that was the first one I'd gone to in a few years. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's tons of fun. I'm ready to get back into doing con stuff. So, but with Oki Comics, a bunch of us teamed up, and the business model was kind of like the free magazines you pick up outside of whatever restaurant you're at. And never quite gained traction with it, and then COVID happened, so everybody's advertising turned to zero. Yeah, so that put a pause on it. And we're working on bringing it back as a nonprofit right now, which I think would be kind of cool with how its mission is just really to showcase the comics talent we have here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, comics are really tough to get into. I mean, I've tried jumping in, and it's a lot of time and effort to do. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so much, but if you love it, then we just need more outlets for it, really.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you read a lot of manga. I know you talked about Astro Boy in our class, which I haven't read. But I did read Monster from Naoki Urasawa, and that made me want to try Pluto, which is apparently like a reimagining of Astro Boy.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't read any of that. Which, talking about there being too much media, I mean,
I know.
Of anything, but yeah, definitely manga. Been really into Shigeru Mizumi lately.
Mm-hmm. Got
sent some comics to do reviews on, or graphic novels collections. So very serious 1970s and 80s. Have been really fascinating. So
yeah, I guess I'm a normie. I like genre. I like adventure. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as fun as great as something like Blankets is, or you know, have you read Blankets?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say fantastic. Or some of Will Eisner's stuff that isn't The Spirit. I haven't read The Spirit. I want to.
Oh, there's so much Spirit, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. I'm like, oh my lord. I respect Eisner though. He's basically do you think people would argue if people would mention he's basically the grandfather of modern comics as we know it today?
I mean, with the graphic novel push that he did, for sure. Because I mean, he was way back 30s making comics at The Spirit, which came off of radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Jack Kirby was younger than him. Like, he's so well established, and then comes back there in the 70s wanting to do his serious, like, long form comics with the whole graphic novel push. And and I mean, that definitely shifted what Americans perceive as comics. I mean, up until that point, like, comics are for kids, which is still the stigma today, but I mean, that got killed off in the 50s with the Comics Code Authority, and then it comes back, and I mean, there's so much good reading graphic novel stuff that we wouldn't have. I'm sure we wouldn't have Blankets if we didn't have Contract with God.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Blankets, or I remember reading it and I just loved it. I was kind of nervous it's gonna be one of those like edgy, like fuck God kind of things, but no, it was actually a really more, it was like a more tender story, I thought.
Oh yeah, very cool. Yeah. So very good coming of age and understanding, and not really a like action conclusion of blowing stuff up, but just kind of an understanding. So yeah, like the classic literature plot of, well, what actually happened? Well, it's complicated. And, like,
well, yeah, I mean,
because that's what life is.
As much as I like action and sci-fi and stuff like that, I enjoy me the occasional just slice of life from time to time. I guess you could say Blankets is a slice of life. I don't really have. I mean, Jeff Lemire's Roughneck I really enjoy. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's a fun one. Not really fun. It's really dark, but I enjoy it. So there you go. I also like darker things too. I guess I'm weird that way. Just wired that way.
There you go.
I like
Guys in with unsolved mysteries.
Yeah, I like Watchmen and oh well, I wouldn't say Invincible's too dark. It's a lot of fun. Like what comics do you enjoy? Like I remember you mentioned you like Mark Waid from an old conversation we had.
Oh yeah.
I enjoy Kingdom Come from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kingdom Come way back. I need to read his Flash stuff. Really got into Mark Waid with was it Irredeemable comics? I have them over there.
I've heard that one's good. I haven't read it.
Yeah, so good. Oh my gosh. Just Superman gets sick of all of humanity's crap and decides to put it into it. Like, yeah, that makes sense and all fits, and it's a completely new universe, but there's so many seeds of the different superheroes that we're familiar with kind of tying all into, and like, okay, yeah, I can see where this trope and genre and stuff is coming from. Super cool. So really got into that. And then I guess going back with Carl Banks, like all-time favorite graphic novel, The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, which I have over there. Oh man,
I was kind of surprised when I've heard people go, "Wow, Scrooge McDuck," you know, that's where it's at. I'm like, because I watched Disney growing up, and I was like, oh, yeah, didn't expect that. But hey, you know, I could always be pleasant. I don't like writing things off, you know, but I'm often surprised by what's acclaimed.
Yeah, hey, we're smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, he earned everything. He had one bad deal that he ever did, and haunted him literally the rest of his life. So, it's a good moral lesson.
I know he was...
Give everybody a square deal.
I've heard he was very well loved around the world, except for America. And I'm like, come on.
We're missing out, guys. Yeah.
Americans are idiots sometimes.
Yeah, we're lovable though, so hopefully people will forgive us.
We're like worried about I don't know. But yeah, Carl Barks is another one I'd like to get into at some point.
Oh yeah, and again, so much. I mean, where do you even start reading? I guess try to find a collection of the treasury of beginning and just work your way through.
I did hear a fun fact that we wouldn't have gotten the boulder scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark if it weren't for Barks, so I thought that was fun.
I believe it, yeah.
Because apparently Spielberg and Lucas are comic fans.
I believe it. Yeah, we're out there in the 50s.
I actually rewatched E.T. the other day because I run another podcast with a friend of mine, and the Star Wars the Star Wars toys. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just he's just really going for it with George Lucas. He's like, hey, go watch his movie.
They're old buds, old film school buddies. So I guess that worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a weird thing. I don't think anyone ever expects to be successful, and then it just happens. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So the trick is to keep going with it, right? Carry it on.
Like what comics do you like? And I know like I said, I know you mentioned Mark Waid, but like, what are like preferred genres that you like to? Do you like reading indie stuff? Do you like superheroes? Is there something you prefer? Are you just all encompassing? Like,
yeah, I'm all over the place. So
okay.
If there's something you can find that's interesting, like I'll give it a try. Yeah, like you said, don't write anything off, and like, oh yeah,
don't write anything awful.
Yeah, trying to think what I've been reading recently. Well, let's say one of the books books I read earlier this year. The Sky is Blue with a Single Cloud. It's a collection of short comics which were in indie magazines in Japan in the 70s. And they're super surreal, kind of Twilight Zone type stuff. Everything has a real twist ending, which the story with The Sky is Blue with a Single Cloud is, very poetic in describing how pretty everything is, but that single cloud is a mushroom cloud, and like,
ooh,
yeah, the end of the world and so forth. It's very powerful and beautiful in its way, I suppose.
I know someone who did like a book. I always forget because I've seen it around, but I always forget what it's called. It was like a children's book, and it was about a nuclear apocalypse and this couple who lived through it. Can't think of the name. Apparently, the guy who did it died recently. I don't know what it. Does that sound familiar to you?
No, I'll have to look in on that.
No? Wow. All right.
Always more to find. Which I guess mostly I'm really into world building. Like, what's weird about this and so forth. That's my jam. So, like...
Do you enjoy Lord of the Rings?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Which there are some pretty decent old Lord of the Rings comics. I'm surprised they didn't try to do something with that, but as sticky as Tolkien's family is with giving rights, I'm sure that would have been prohibitively expensive.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, save it for the movies.
But
maybe someday.
I read a book called Perdido Street Station recently, and the sequel, The Scar. It takes place in the same world, different stories, yada yada. Great world building in that.
Okay.
Because I tend to like world building that comes alive off the page, and doesn't overly explain itself. I mean, even authors I like are prone to doing that. Like, you like Game of Thrones at all?
Yeah. The movie for sure. The books, I could never get into George R. Martin's voice. It was so script-like. That was like,
well, I think he did start out as a screenwriter for a while there.
Yeah, decades in Hollywood. So that worked out for him pretty well too. Yeah, he's doing okay.
But yeah, I find there's two problems that kind of pervade his stuff. One is, dude, he just likes to go big, for better or for worse.
For sure.
Like, the first book of Game of Thrones, it had a good beginning, middle, and end, but it just keeps going. And also, he sometimes likes to over-explain his world, when I think it would be nice to just let it come to life. Now, it's not easy, but, I think it can be doable. I mean, I think even Tolkien is kind of guilty of this as well, so... At least from my readings of him. I haven't dared touch the Silmarillion, because I'm like, oh boy.
Oh. Yes, it's a lot. It's got a ton going on. But he liked writing it, so that's the important part.
He enjoyed it, so I'll take it.
The creation story is really cool. Yeah, echoes a lot of music-based and spoken creation from European and Western, Middle Eastern ideas.
I haven't tried Rings of Power yet. It's kind of a lightning rod. Apparently, I'm like, who cares? All the complaints are really dumb anyway, so I'm like, I might watch it.
I've watched the first couple of episodes, and it's been pretty fun. I mean, there's always more stuff to watch out there, but if you really like Lord of the Rings type vibes, they have really captured that. So,
I don't know. I feel like I've moved on from Tolkien in some places, and not to mean I don't like him anymore. I do. I do enjoy Lord of the Rings still. But it's like I'm not sure if I enjoyed as much as I did when I was younger.
Which, I mean, there's always something else. Everybody doesn't have to like one singular thing.
Oh, so no. Like I recently started reading the original Conan stories from Robert E. Howard,
wow.
and those are really good, surprisingly.
Cool. Yeah, hold up after almost 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also read a little John Carter when I was a kid, which I saw the movie, which I thought was a lot of fun, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, it was very fun.
I know a lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was fun, personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure why people didn't like it. I mean, maybe it's just Sword and Planet's too esoteric for people, but
Sword and Planet stories are the ones who fly too close to the sun.
I guess so. Yeah. Maybe it'll come back someday.
Yeah, it's like this weird little subgenre that was there for a while and it just kind of went out of print.
Yeah.
Edgar Rice Burroughs, though, that man had a. I'm envious of that man because he could just write like there was no tomorrow.
Nice. So many distractions.
But like I mean like what other what comics do you enjoy? Like is there specific ones that you? I mean you mentioned Scrooge McDuck and Irredeemable. Are there other ones that you would mention?
Yeah, let's see if I were just gonna hand out recommendations. The George O'Connor Olympian series was super great. I mean it was technically targeted at like kind of a middle grade reader.
Mm-hmm.
They're Greek myths, so rated R, several of them. I mean, just there's no way to tell the story without it being. But he wrote everything and illustrated it very, very well, and tons of research. So, like, he's got 6 or 7 pages of citations for these, and so it's 12 volumes, each one about a different Olympian. He swaps out a couple of them just to kind of get different perspectives from Hades and people who weren't technically Olympians. But man, so good. Just weaving together all these intricate Greek myths. And of course, you get all these different versions, and so he shows how there can be different versions of myths. And oh man, highly recommended that to my niece and nephews the other day, and they grabbed it at the library, and so they didn't have to wait like I did for years to finally get to the last one with Dionysus.
Yeah, very nice.
I would definitely recommend that. Boxers and Saints.
I've read Saints. Really enjoyed that. Haven't read Boxers. Haven't read Boxers. I have read Saints, and that one I remember being really sad by it. The ending was really sad, I thought.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean it's historical, so very, very sad.
Yeah.
But good read and good to understand like what exactly was going on and stuff. I mean, we gotta take a look at it. Well, I mean, going back on spooky stuff, Hellboy, like that whole world that's been built up around just what he was doodling around back in the 90s with.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this thing I call it the Spoopathon, where I just read a bunch of spooky stuff in October. Oh, thank you, Kitty, for just smack your tail. Thank you, appreciate it. I don't know who are more needier, dogs or cats. I've been asking people.
Depends when they need you, I guess.
What was I? Oh yeah, Hellboy. I waited a while to read Hellboy, and then I did, and I'm like, you know what? This is pretty good. I enjoy this.
Yeah.
I like Mike Mignola's art.
Yeah.
I like his unusual style and his framing. I love the colors too. I think Dave Stewart did them.
Yeah, so much ink is great.
But yeah, I really enjoy Mike Mignola's stuff. I was a bit intimidated for a long time because there's so much of it.
Yeah, and all the spin-offs with BPRD and Lobster Johnson and so much more that I've definitely not read.
I've only just read. I only read. I've only just read the Hellboy series, and I find it's one of those things, kind of like the X-Files or Doctor Who, where I find the one-off adventures are a lot more fun than the main story of it.
Yeah.
Nothing against the main story. I enjoy it, but I enjoy the short stories. They're just really weird, and he just is like, all right, let's just do this thing and see how it goes.
Yeah, this time Hellboy meets Baba Yaga.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Hellboy's carrying around a corpse, or he ends up fighting this dwarf thing with iron shoes, you know.
Yeah. So it's great.
Have you ever seen the Amazing Screw-On Head cartoon?
Yeah, that was so fantastic. Oh, that was great.
Made me want to read the comic. Because I enjoyed that cartoon quite a bit.
So good.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
They were trying to make a series out of it, but it didn't quite take. So.
Oh, that was a crime, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm also a big Batman and Spider-Man fan, so I've always enjoyed that stuff. It might be normie, I guess, but they're classics for a reason, I suppose.
Yeah, it's solid. Let's see, one of the big projects I'm working on is collecting all of the Elseworlds and What Ifs.
Oh.
So I've got a few Elseworlds left to go and one What If from the 90s left, and then I'll be caught up with those. But man, they love doing What Ifs with Spider-Man and Elseworlds with Batman.
Yeah, I enjoy, going back to Mignola, I enjoy Gotham by Gaslight from him and the late Brian Augustin. I think his name is Augustin or Augustine. I don't know, but it sucks because a lot of great Batman creators have died this year. Neil Adams passed away, and Tim Sale. I was really sad about Tim Sale because Long Halloween is one of my favorite Batman stories. Even if the ending kind of stumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
George Perez died this year. I've never encountered any of his stuff, but I know a lot of people were really sad about that one, and that wasn't fun either. So yeah, it's been kind of a tough year, 2022. A lot of people have died.
Statistical, I guess, but when you're working with a character that's been around for 90 years, you're gonna have a lot of folks who've worked on him.
Yeah, it's just a lot of great stuff. I like about Batman. There's just a lot of stuff you could do with him. It's like he took the idea of the Shadow, which you could even argue he was a rip-off from, and he kind of made it more interesting, at least in my opinion, anyway.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever encountered like Shadow before, but I've read some of that stuff and fun, but you know, it's just kind of like it's just the basic idea of Batman, except the guy's a lunatic.
Right. Yeah. So it's so much more pulpy than which I mean, if you go back and read the 1940s Batman, very pulpy.
Oh yeah.
But he evolved and became his own thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, you kind of have to when you're a long-running character like that.
And the best rogues gallery. I mean, nobody's got villains to compete.
Them and Spider-Man, or they got best rogue. There you go. I guess I really enjoy good rogues galleries. Yeah, Superman also has a good rogues gallery.
Pretty good, not as good. I mean, Lex Luthor, you know, there's that, and Bizarro. Superman's a good take, but like Toyman, not quite to that same level of Lex Luthor.
I also have a friend who even described Dr. Seuss as a graphic novelist, and that was really interesting. And I was actually wondering what you might think of that, because he made some pretty interesting arguments, I thought.
That is curious. I mean, I would still argue that a lot of his books are more heavily illustrated poetry. Mm-hmm. So, like, you have to see the words to really make sense of what's going on. But I mean, you do get into some of his more adult stuff, like the was it 16 Godivas or whatever?
I never read that. I've seen some of his political cartoons, and
yeah, I mean that is definitely elevated literature. Looking at it,
some of them are, oh, that's interesting, and then, oh, that didn't age well.
No, a lot of World War II propaganda that he definitely saw the problem with as things included on, which is why we got Horton Hears a Who. Right?
Yeah.
So you can't let your prejudices tear stuff apart.
Yeah, it's something. I remember reading a lot of Seuss when I was a kid, and I think a lot of people did, so it's not really too different.
Yeah. I mean, not all.
I just like his weird style. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very iconic. Certainly something you can tell it's him.
But yeah, my friend is like, yep, not a choice that because he was telling me his top 3, who he thought was like the biggest impact in the comics medium, and I'm like, okay. He said Jack Kirby and Will Eisner. I'm like, Will Eisner's on there? He's like, yeah, I tried. I guess like Wally Wood and Harvey Kurtzman. I didn't get his. I forgot Kurtzman's last name. He's like, nope, those guys are good, but no. And then he's like Dr. Seuss. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I was not expecting that.
I just ran a numbers game, like, of people influenced, yeah.
But yeah, I don't read a lot of newspaper comics. Not like I'm not against them or anything. I've just never really, it's never taken me as much as like the books have.
Yeah.
I did like the Peanuts quite a bit though. I grew up watching that. The comics are also a lot of fun too. Though a lot of them are like gag-a-day comics.
Mm-hmm.
But
Snoopy, man, icon.
Well, I think there's just something really relatable about Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah, his whole struggle with depression. Like, I didn't even understand it as a kid. Just like always making weird, depressed stuff, and then there's a joke, but like, it's for real.
Yeah.
Stuff. Like, yeah.
I love Linus too. I like the I don't know if it's irony or contradiction or both, but I like he's the most childlike of them, but he's also the most like intelligent out of all of them.
Yeah. I mean, he knows what he likes and can't argue with him about it.
Yeah. Are there like any modern creators or comics that you enjoy?
Who's the guy who does Leo?
Leo. I don't think I know that.
I think I've got his name. Thule, yeah. So I'd recommend that. It's almost wordless, so it's just images, and it's this really weird, spooky kid doing weird, spooky stuff with like his pet squid and ghosts and monsters and all kinds of stuff. Just having a good time. Highly recommend. I love it. And really innovative since it has almost no words, so just about anybody can really dive in.
You say wordless, it makes me think of Art Spiegelman.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I know he did Moss. Moss is kind of like Superman for me. Didn't care for it at first, and then it kind of grew on me over time.
Yeah.
Because I read Moss, I'm like, oh yeah, Holocaust survivor, and it's interesting, and I like the way he did it, but it's like whatever. Then I read it later, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really, touching stuff.
Oh yeah.
This is really sad.
Yeah. It is.
Like his dad's story is just horrendous, or not horrendous, but it's just really sad.
Mm-hmm. So definitely a must read.
Really puts you into perspective. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it weren't so bad, Spiegelman.
Yeah, but you just gotta be ready to read it, I guess. I'm not sure how to define when an audience is ready for a certain work, but I mean, I guess you could argue reading level and stuff, but there's just so much personal investment. Like, are you ready to check this out, dive into it, or just...
Also, like some of Frank Miller's stuff. Batman Year. I actually prefer Batman Year One over Dark Knight Returns. Dark Knight. Dark Knight Returns is good. I don't care much for the art style because I've never liked Miller's art style. It just feels like a roided out imitation of Kirby.
Yeah, you can definitely put that.
There, I like to jokingly describe it as that, and I mean I know there's people who like Miller. That's fine. You know, you're not a bad person if you like Frank Miller.
Oh man, 300 though.
Oh boy.
That's right there.
Also, I have a soft spot for some of the Sin City
Oh yeah.
stuff. I like how I like how he does motion. I'll say that. I'll give him that in terms of like his actual art style. More of a I like a lot of the Brit wave guys. Alan Moore, Warren Ellis, even Garth Ennis. Even though he can kind of get a little wacky at times.
Yeah, pretty wacky.
Grant Morrison, who also gets pretty wacky at times.
Very.
There's probably other ones. I have Peter Milligan over here. I'd like to try out at some point.
Much Peter Milligan.
I've always wanted to try Calvin and Hobbes because a lot of people are like,
Oh yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes is actually great and you should read it. And I'm all like, all right, not my usual shtick, but you know, maybe I'll try it at some point.
Oh yeah, highly recommend. And there's so many treasuries of it. I'm sure you could grab something out of a library just to.
I'm usually not into like gag-a-day stuff. I don't know. Not against them. Just I like stuff with story. I'm more of like a story guy. So there you go.
There's so many different plot lines. You could probably do pretty well with a collection.
But people are like, Calvin and Hobbes is actually really good. So I'm like, all right. Bone. I've heard Bone is really good.
I've heard that too. One of my big failings. I've never read it.
All right. There you go.
Yeah. I've read pages out of it, lots of clips and things, but never.
I've also. I'm kind of wary of Bone. It looks kind of silly, but I've heard it's fun though, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, kind of like Cerebus. It's looks really goofy when you first see it, and then you get into, or so I've been told, you can really get into it. And it's gonna
I've heard Cerebus is just weird. I've kind of been hesitant on that one as well. I'm like,
yeah, definitely weird, but good world building and super.
Yeah,
dark.
I love the Bruce Timm DC animated stuff. Him and Paul Dini did. Apparently, it's been 30 years since the animated series first came out, Batman the Animated Series, and nuts.
92.
It was nuts. You seem like a kid from the 90s. Did you watch Batman the Animated Series?
Very faithfully. Oh yeah.
There's a couple of episodes that are kind of goofy. I know that might be sacrilege, but most of it is just gold.
Yeah, and definitely the last season they switched around a lot of the production team, so it's almost a completely different series.
Mm-hmm.
Still pretty good, but man, those early things with like, where even to start? Well, Mr. Freeze.
Oh my God!
I didn't even realize this until going back as an adult and looking back at it. He doesn't go to Arkham; he goes to Blackgate because he turns himself in. Like it, yeah, he's not crazy. He knows exactly what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
such a sad episode. I love Heart of Ice. It's a great episode. That's one everyone loves, and for good reason. It's one of those. It's kind of like Watchmen. It's properly rated, I think. Now everyone says underrated or overrated. I think it's one of those rare things that's properly rated. Like it's the praise is deserved.
Yeah.
I usually tell my friends.
Harley Quinn, right?
Oh yeah. Mad Love is good. From I think that was on the other series.
Really gave some depth and showing the whole abusive relationship and how that's evolved through culture to today. Really, really cool stuff.
I love the art style too. the animation style. It's like I like the gothic of it. I mean, I even love Justice League from them. I thought that was fantastic. Even Superman. I know I did watch the Christopher Reeve movie growing up, but I was more of a Batman kid, you know. I thought Batman was cool. I mean, I'm actually wearing a Batman shirt today, so. But you know, like I said with Moss, Superman's grown on me over the years. I appreciate it. That's kind of why I'm hesitant to read Irredeemable, because I'm kind of weary of the evil Superman trope. Because I'm like, I feel like kind of undercuts Superman. Like Superman is supposed to be like kind, like just the best of human beings.
Yeah,
without actually being a human being.
Reading that perspective, that'll be a good thing. Like, because he could do this. Like, Superman could enslave all of humanity anytime he wanted, but he doesn't want to because that's not nice. That's not what he is.
That's not who he is. I think that's why I like Kingdom Come so much, is because even when Superman has like tragedy, he's still Superman. You know, he's a little more jaded, but he's still a good man at the end of the day. Which I appreciate quite a bit, because, you know, everyone loves to deconstruct stuff nowadays.
For sure, yeah. And it's something we should probably look at, you know, overpowered stuff. And The Boys has been really looking in on evil Superman and how that could be a thing and all this.
I think they're actually, well, the show anyway, I think the show has a really compelling evil Superman, but I'm kind of tired of evil Superman.
Red Sun, there's a good Elseworlds. Have you read that?
While ago, not a big Marlar fan.
Oh yeah. I read that at just the right time, since we were talking about, you know, when should you read stuff like that. It just really hit me as like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and how different political scapes are, you know, not necessarily the philosophy so much as the people behind them. And
I'm like, now evil Batman, I'd watch that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there's been evil Batman stuff somewhere, but I guess evil Superman is popular for whatever reason.
Yeah, he's just a really good villain. You know, it's the kind of other side of the coin of he's a guy who can do anything. And like, oh, he's a guy who can do anything.
It's like, what if that's not a good thing? Yeah.
So what is it, Owlman from the Justice Lords? Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a fun one.
Total nihilist.
Did you see the movie James Woods plays him? I thought that was really good. That was a really good movie.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
I like how he's just walloping Batman the whole time, and then Batman finally just gets one over on him.
Yep.
He's like, careful. He's like, careful, Aquaman. They're stronger than you, and then he just gets socked.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, that's. Yeah, an evil Batman would be scary.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of Elseworlds, because they usually just kind of do a different setting, but that would be a fun look at it, where, I mean, a very similar backstory to any of the supervillains, so, like, why not?
Yeah. Or, you know, what if a supervillain was like a superhero in another universe? Like, I think that could be fun. I know they've kind of played with that, but I think that could be fun.
The flip side with Earth 3 or wherever the Justice Lords are, like, I've been thinking about that a few weeks ago. I was like, you know, what, like, Lex Luthor's this superhero inventor who's always trying to, you know, make the world a better place and uphold everybody, and the Jester, the Joker version, like, he just wants to make people laugh and have a good time. And, like, that could be an interesting hero to look at.
Yeah, no, it's like, I think that could be interesting. Like, what if the villains were the heroes? Like, there's plenty of material still to. I know a lot of people like to mention that superheroes are they're kind of running out of ideas. I'm like, well, it depends on perspective, I think.
Right. Yeah, we just need fresh looks at things, and, you know, back off doing the same thing over and over again, and just a new. What's the new angle?
I mean, I even like the Superman stuff that Tim and I think Dini was involved in that too. I enjoy that as well. It's just kind of hey, let's take the Reeves Superman movie and make it animated. Go nuts on it, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy the. I have a soft spot for the Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
Everybody should. It's great.
At least the first two. I haven't. I remember. I know 4 is kind of universally described as bad.
Yeah, it's problematic. It's not great.
So. Is 3 the one with Zod, or is 2? I think it's 2.
Mm-hmm.
2's the one with Zod.
That's the best one, I think. But the fight scene's a little weird at the end. But man,
I mean, I know a lot of people like to describe Alan Moore as the guy who likes to deconstruct superheroes, but this Superman stuff is really good. You know, I read his Swamp Thing run, and again, when I read that, it just makes me sad that that soured like it did, because it makes me wonder, oh man, what else could he have done?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I do think it is kind of petty when he'll, come out of his hidey hole in Northampton and rant about superhero movies. I'm like, well, for a guy who kind of seems dismissive of him, you do seem to write about him a lot.
That's why he hates them so much, is because he loves them. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, no. I'm sure he's a nice guy. If there's ever one comic person I'd like to meet, it would be him. Or yeah, he seems like he'd be a very fascinating person to talk to.
Very true.
He has a lot of weird and wacky ideas in that beard of his.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm my Alan Moore love is so much. I'm I'm surprised no one has gone like, okay, Britton, we get it. You can calm down now. I'm like, I'm sorry.
There's a lot to talk about. I mean, what is the man who wants everything, or the man who has everything? There you go.
That's a great story. I love that one.
Turned into the Justice League episode.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's good. Superman and Batman, same time.
Oh yeah. Killing Joke's my favorite. I don't know why. Even over Watchmen and V for Vendetta, which I would say that Watchmen is better than The Killing Joke by a country mile, but
yeah, it's got a lot more in it too. So,
but I enjoy The Killing Joke more for some reason. I don't know. I guess maybe it's because it's Alan Moore toned down, and he's not really allowed to kind of do his thing, and he kind of has to. He's kind of under the gun, and he still manages to. I know he doesn't really think much of it, but I'm like, dang, that was him on an off day. That is very impressive.
Yeah, which definitely streamlined. Not like From Hell where you have 300 pages of notes.
I know. I tried reading From Hell and I just couldn't do it. maybe someday.
Basically.
Maybe I'll try it again someday. But
yeah,
I'm like, Alan, I think you flew a little too close to the sun there.
Yeah, he liked it, so.
Well, I know he's very proud of it.
Together in one place, so.
I was like V for Vendetta. I like how V for Vendetta is. It kind of starts out a little. It's good, but it's kind of rough, and then it gets better as it moves along.
Yeah.
You can see him improving. I enjoy that. But yeah, I enjoy Alan Moore quite a bit. I enjoy Robert Kirkman just as much too. So.
Awesome. Yeah, someday I'm gonna sit down and read. Maybe I'll do that for my summer project next year. Even though my summer project this year didn't. It's still not done, but almost done.
Are there indie comics that you read from Image or Dark Horse at all?
Let's see, what I've been reading lately. I mean, so much of what I read is indie that it's hard to think of what.
Have you read Saga?
I haven't. I need to.
You haven't read Saga? Oh, it's fantastic.
What's wrong with me?
That's another one that I think is properly rated. It is as good as advertised. Or I think so anyway. I'm sure there's people who don't like it for whatever reason. Nothing's for everybody.
Yeah. Everybody's got tastes, so no problem there.
I also have the Goon up here that's staring at me. I'd like to try it.
There's another one I need to read. I met him at Comic-Con a few years ago. Super nice guy, just really down to earth. Like, yeah, I make comics.
I read his Hillbilly, which was fantastic.
Ooh,
I thought.
I've heard good things.
At least the first volume. I need to get the rest of them. I do have. I also have. I also got into Darwin Cook more recently too. I like his. I'm a big fan of. It's like the Tim stuff. I think he worked with Bruce Timm and them on the animated stuff. So I really like the New Frontier because of that. Reminds me a lot of that style.
Cool.
Sucks he died. I was like, man,
Yeah.
Dang it. It was unfortunate.
What a life.
Sadly, I didn't get into him until after he died, but I can't always get everybody.
That's right. Yeah. Like we were saying, always more media.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to steer back to the ghost stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's always something that's interested me. Do you like UFOs as well, or are you just a ghost guy?
A little bit of UFO stuff. I'm so focused on kind of the historical folklore side of it that, which I mean, of course, UFOs don't have since they're modern and the background's very hazy. A lot of it's just a couple of guys writing books and things. So.
Have you watched Ancient Aliens?
Abduction stuff, kind of cool, but most of my stuff's really been on ghosts, just to have that perspective from society on it.
Have you watched Ancient Aliens?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's very interesting stuff. I like a lot of it, and like, why not, right? Well, the question is, like, why aren't they here now? Like, what happened?
I'm kind of wary of it because I feel like it kind of veers off in the weird conspiracy jabber, but
absolutely does. Yeah.
There's some of it that's interesting. I'm like, oh, that's
yeah.
They're basically like, okay, what if all the mythologies aliens? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I even got my Roswell shirt on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they've milked that since the incident over there.
Oh yeah. So some weird stuff, and then some stuff that's obviously just kind of added on. And,
yeah, I've always had an interest in I've always had an interest in weird stuff like that. Ghosts and unsolved mysteries and UFOs and all that fun stuff. Like I said, I watched Unsolved Mysteries a lot when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, Robert Stack that man has a great voice, and I enjoy hearing him narrate stuff. Watched the X-Files in middle school, which, again, is one of those, I think the one-offs are far more fun than the main stuff. I don't know if...
Yeah, I watched the first couple of seasons and then kind of lost track of it. That would be a fun one to go back and kind of watch all the way through and see how it evolves.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I enjoy, but yeah, I've always enjoyed wacky ghost stuff.
No shortage.
But yeah, I've seen your books around at like Barnes and Noble. I like to go there from time to time, and I'm like, oh yeah, I had that guy.
Very cool. Yeah, it's been good, and just had Haunted Garfield County. So I grew up near Enid, and it's one I've been working on for years, trying to get put together. So teamed up with Tammy Wilson, who does the ghost tour up in Enid, and so she had a bunch of stories, and I had a bunch of stories, and we finally come together.
Like, are there any areas that you've gone to that you've like enjoyed more than others that you've like toured?
So, well, shoot, they've all been so good. Well, the Guthrie Ghost Walk, highly recommend. Super cool. Yeah, I mean, the whole town Guthrie's got crazy stuff going on. And Terry French's Tulsa Spirit Tours, also really cool. And that's because of the versatility. She's got the Ghost Tour, she's got the Gangsters Tour.
Yes, I heard a lot of Gangsters.
Just
I've heard a lot of gangsters hid out here back in the day, like in the 30s anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's all those oil men, so easy money for kidnapping and prohibition.
Apparently my great grandfather gave gas to Machine Gun Kelly once.
Oh wow!
My grandma is very proud of that story.
There you go.
But yeah, I've always just one of the things I also like about ghost stories. I like the stories, you know, that what would you call it? I like the folklore of it.
Yeah.
It's almost like modern myth in a lot of ways.
Get the context and understanding and kind of why are they here.
Kind of like superheroes in that way. They're the modern myths, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, I've always liked mythology. Never been a Greek guy. I've always liked Norse mythology for whatever reason.
Yeah. It's all fascinating stuff.
It's because I've always had interest in just that mindset, just like of the Norse gods, because a lot of it is just really, again, I like darker things, so I guess I've always just been fascinated, like, what kind of people thought this? Like, people genuinely thought, like, believed in this, and you know.
Some people still do.
And, I'm sure people still do somewhere, but, I mean, you know, in the same vein, I've always been interested in religion for that same kind of reason. Like, why do people believe in this? It's fascinating stuff. For me, anyway. Back to my grandma. She apparently did not believe in ghosts until she read something in the Bible about them. So, she told me that. So, I'm like... That's what convinced you. Okay. I won't...
If you're a fundamentalist, then that's all it takes, right? Just the appearance of Samuel and...
So I'm like, you know what?
Things in the New Testament.
I'm like, you know what? Fine. It's like, I'm not gonna... Plus, she's my grandma. I'm not gonna argue with my grandma, so...
Right, yeah.
I think I have standards.
That's right. Respect the elders.
Yeah. But yeah, I've always liked the stories, like, where you know, Scurv and apparently someone, like, committed suicide over there, and that's the ghost now. I've always just, for some reason, that maybe it's just the spectacle of it, I guess, is interesting for me.
Yeah, and that you can go and visit this, kind of try to have an experience yourself.
Or the kind of weird, the sordid nature of the stories, I suppose, I've always enjoyed. Or,
yeah,
you know...
Adds spice.
Same thing with, like treasure hunts. I've always just been fascinated by the stories.
Yeah, there's a really good Treasure Tales, is that it? But guy back in the 80s wrote a collection of all kinds of buried treasure legends in Oklahoma. And puns.
Yeah, I mean, not that I'd like to enrich myself or anything. It's just, I just like the stories.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would certainly enrich myself if I could, so...
It's like the Goonies, though I'm more of an E.T. guy, I guess. You've seen the Goonies, right? I hope.
Oh, yeah. Actually watched it just a couple of weeks ago again for 6th or 7th time, probably.
Yeah, it's a good one. A lot of young... Like, apparently the guy played Short Round, and the kid in... Goonies just came back in a new movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I'd like to see.
That. I haven't had a chance yet, but I've heard nothing but great things.
Yeah. But yeah, back to ghost stories. I enjoy, but yeah, I like their stories, you know, same thing with, like, treasure hunts and stuff like that.
Yeah, so much context, and you can see reflections of ourselves in it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's, same thing with UFOs. I like the stories about the abduction ones. I'm like, oh, it's really weird. But yeah, I've just always been fascinated in the stories like that. Just kind of those anecdotal type of things, stories, folklore, whatever you want to call it. I don't know about you. Maybe that attracts you as well.
Oh, for sure. yeah, what's the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which like paranormal investigators, have the equipment and they're going in and trying to document and everything, which is cool. But like mine's, like, what's the background?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like have you ever seen those shows? Like what's one of those called? Ghost Hunters. Or Ghost Adventurers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those guys.
Ever seen BuzzFeed Unsolved?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I love those guys. They stopped doing that a few years ago. I was like, oh man, I really like that.
They sure do a lot of good stuff though. So.
I like the chemistry between the main two guys and that kind of Mulder and Scully dynamic. Except it's real. It's not like also not as weirdly conspiratorial. Which is weird. I generally tend to lack patience for conspiracy theories, but I think like on the other level, I kind of find them interesting. Again, kind of the story of it, I think, is interesting.
Yeah. Some of them are a lot of fun.
But yeah, I enjoy. I've always wanted to visit New Orleans because it apparently is like the most haunted place in the United States of America. So, for better or for worse.
It goes way back, so it's up there with Savannah and New York and.
Like I've read some of the stories about New Orleans ghosts, and some of them are pretty spine chilling. I think.
Oh, for sure.
Like the crazy slave lady, not like the actual slaves, but like one of the masters with like this really crazy woman who was like notorious. Some of that will make your hair stand up, I think.
What was it? American Horror Stories, yeah. They hinted their New Orleans. Kathy Bates player. It was great.
But yeah, some of those stories, it just give you the shivers, I guess.
Yeah, there's some really dark stuff out there.
I've also wanted to. There's also like I've also just maybe it's like true crime. I don't know. Again, I just like the stories of it.
Yeah, there's so much weird stuff. Which there's a story I need to do some more digging up on. Guy in the 30s in Oklahoma City. Showed up to the police station and said, "Hey, I'm back. I killed my family." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, and so he took him out and showed him. So about a week before, he don't know if it was a psychotic break or what, but he killed his family and buried him in a park in Oklahoma City, and then ran off to Arkansas, and had basically gotten away with it. Right? People were just like, "I don't know where they went," and then he came back and turned himself in.
Was it like the shame of it, or?
I don't know. Yeah,
doesn't know.
Sure there's court transcripts somewhere from it, but like just total confession.
What were the cops just mouth agape, just looking at him?
I mean,
like,
yeah, right. Like
I don't know how I'd react if I were a cop. I'd just be like, huh?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who confess to stuff without actually doing it. So who knows? But
I bet you could make a good story out of that one, like a fictionalized take on that one.
Oh yeah, lots of different directions to go with
it. Same thing with like Amityville Horror. I know like the guy like shot his family. Apparently like they figured out the dude was just crazy, but just like or maybe there were actual ghosts. I have no idea, but
well, I mean, maybe both, right?
Maybe both, yeah.
Because he could, right?
But yeah, just the stories have always fascinated me when it comes to like paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
More than the actual, like, I mean, some of the have you ever seen, like, photos of alleged ghosts? Like, I wonder what you think of those.
Well, we've even had a bunch of them on the Norman tour. People take pictures of the barbershop, and we've had, 6 or 7 people sharing pictures with me of people inside there when there aren't any people.
Yeah, those weird me out. Like, I remember seeing one of, like, it was like these orbs floating, there was, like, a face in it. Oh, it creeped me out. It creeped me out.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. You see it and you know something's not right.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you like Stephen King.
Oh, for sure.
The photo I have on the background here, you see a Pet Cemetery.
Awesome.
Yeah. Apparently, The Shining was based on a experience Stephen King had, a weird one at a hotel.
Yeah, you can go visit there. It's supposed to be pretty haunted, but they might just be trying to rent rooms and get tours. But
probably, I wouldn't be surprised. People like to milk that stuff.
Yeah.
I saw a movie called Nope recently, which is actually about that, our interest in kind of exploiting weird phenomenon, because exploiting people's fascination and weird phenomenon like UFOs or ghosts and stuff like that. I thought that was a really fascinating take.
I'm hoping to see it soon. See how things get around.
But yeah, I think a lot of people are also just interested in that as well, just the kind of the story of it.
Oh, for sure.
Also, probably the spectacle, like, ooh, ghosts.
Yeah.
Same thing with UFOs. Not seen one yet.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
Apparently the government's like, hey, apparently we're calling them UAPs now. So.
UAP.
Oh, okay.
Whatever works.
But yeah. Do you enjoy Stephen King at all?
Do it?
Do you enjoy Stephen King?
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Misery's my favorite. For sure.
Oh, it's a great one.
Love it.
Mine is it's a weird one. A lot of people like to dunk on King a lot because he's so popular.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I think if you read his stuff, he's a great storyteller, I think.
Yeah, just good old boy from Maine who likes to tell spooky stories. Yeah.
He's written a lot of great ones. I like It. Like, in terms of his, like, big books, I like It quite a bit. The Stand is good, too, though the climax kind of...
Yeah, he's problematic about his climaxes.
Yeah, apparently he admitted, he's like, I kind of wrote myself into a corner, so I just nuked them all to... Because why not? And I'm like, you know what?
There you go.
Fine. I love 11/22. I think that's his best modern book, 11/22/63. You read that one?
I haven't.
Oh, it's so good.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
Also like Salem's Lot. I'm not a big vampire. I'm more of a werewolf guy. But Salem's Lot, I really liked his take on vampires. There's also that version they did where the guy looks like Nosferatu. That's pretty memorable.
Yeah, that was good. My wife was watching that just the other day. It holds up. It's spooky stuff.
Like what's your favorite King? Or you said Misery, right?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
I enjoy Misery too. That's a great one. Really weird. Not weird. Surprisingly realistic take on a weird fan.
Yeah, which for all my love of paranormal and mysticism and so forth, it's not at all. So.
Yeah, it's just human beings can be pretty twisted sometimes, and there you go. I think that's what Stephen King excels at. He can capture human twistedness and evil.
Yeah, which I mean, throughout all the stories, it's rarely about the paranormal being the bad part. I mean, it for sure, but there's so many people that are
one of the things
pushing the story, the badness.
One of the things I like about it, at least the book, I like how the being almost influences the evil within the people. It's like how would you describe it? It's almost like it's tipping the line. Is that it?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Influencing it? I don't know. King likes that. He likes the beings that influence human evil. It's not just the big man. It's not just the big monster. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Salem's Lot does that too.
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm.
It's not just, oh, look, spooky vampire. It's like, here's how the vampire, like, affects people and can seduce them into evil.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with, like, Randall Flagg from The Stand.
Yeah, that's his whole thing.
I guess King just likes that trope, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one, so...
I find it interesting as well, so it's like, all right. And the multiversal stuff is weird, too. I'm like, oh, okay. That's fun. Have you read Pet Sematary? I see you have it, like, behind you over there. This photo of you.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's his most disturbing one. That's the one that freaked me out the most.
Yeah, I saw an interview with him where he was like, if I hadn't already written this, I'd probably be like, no, I'm not going to write that. It's too out there for kids and
yeah.
Scares Stephen King. There you go.
The Shining's fun too. I like the movie quite a bit as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I enjoy a lot of his stuff. I know he just put out a new one called Fairy Tale. Might go check that out. Don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, so I'm excited though. He can write. He's a writing machine.
Oh yeah, that man writes a lot.
1,500 words a day, something like
that. Do you like any other straight to? Do you like any non-picture authors? Besides
picture authors.
Is that a good way?
Yeah.
Novels? You read novels as well as comic books?
For sure. I was on a big kick a while ago to read H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, just like the whole thing.
I grew up reading them.
Pretty much done with H.G. Wells. There's a lot of Jules Verne yet to do, but
it's like a weird nostalgia thing for me with H.G. Wells, or his works feel nostalgic in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely of his time.
Very Dickens-esque too, which maybe that's why I like him as well. I love Dickens. I still need to read some of his books, but Oliver Twist was a big book for me growing up.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, pretty pictures, and I'm like, oh, the story's actually pretty good too.
There you go.
Any others?
Well, I mean, just Dickens' Great Expectations was so cool. What else have I been reading lately?
So is that why you like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? I do see The Invisible Man and Captain Nemo here.
Yeah, which H.G. Wells, man, that story is so cool.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's like, oh, this weird albino guy becomes invisible.
Yeah.
Okay.
My favorite part is when there's the American, and he's like, well, if I can't see him, I'll just shoot everywhere there isn't a person. And it works.
And it works, yeah.
I mean, Americans, what are you going to do?
I kind of like how you almost feel bad for the Invisible Man, even though he's like a nut job.
Yeah, no.
Like when he dies, you're just like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
I know he was ranting earlier about how he's gonna take over the world, but like it's kind of sad when they just beat him to death.
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
Back.
Not a fan of War of the Worlds. It just kind of feels like a news report to me.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, because I thought the news aspect of it was the really cool push.
I like the Time Machine quite a bit. That's a great one. That's another ending where I'm like, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, what happened? Maybe it was so good that he never wanted to come back to the 1800s, right?
I know. It's like, it's kind of sad. I don't know how to react to this. I've heard the Island of Dr. Moreau is really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Jules Verne, I read Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea when I was a kid.
Yeah, good stuff.
I also like sea. I like going to the lake and stuff like that, so.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Captain Nemo's a lot of fun. Moby Dick I couldn't get into either. It's a weird one.
But always more to read, that's for sure.
It's a weird one. I like Jaws, which is like kind of a similar story, you could say. You like Jaws?
Oh yeah. Who's that? Peter Benchley? Is that right?
Oh, I mean the movie. I haven't read the book.
The movie, yeah. The movie's fantastic.
I remember reading the book. I'm like, God, these characters are awful. I like the movie more.
I mean, they're still kind of awful, but they're personable.
Threw the book out. I'm like, screw this.
Steven Spielberg's a very gentle soul.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not to say he isn't incapable of exploring darker topics, but I think he's a big-hearted person.
Oh yeah.
You can just tell that from his movies. I think he has a very big sense of wonder. Surprised he hasn't done a superhero movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Just born at the wrong time, I guess.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. But yeah, I'm reading. I'm reading Extraordinary Gentleman. I was looking at. I love Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as well. The original story. I've just always been fascinated by the duality part of it.
Robert Stevenson also good.
Wait, what?
Robert Louis Stevenson also very good. Dr. Jekyll and such.
I read Treasure Island when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Which is a weird one. Maybe not weird. Maybe weird's not the right word. But
weird, but
I know it's like it's basically where we get the modern idea of what pirates are like from that story.
Yeah.
I've heard Kidnapped is fun too.
I read Kidnapped. That'd probably be a good read sometime.
Is there any current book or comics you're reading? You said Leo, but I didn't hear who it was by. Or is Leo the guy who does it?
The guy's last name is Tatuli. I can't remember what his first name is. So, and then George O'Connor's Olympians just finished up this year. So that's probably the most recent comic I've read.
Mm-hmm. Is there a recent, book you've read?
Not recent release. I read Erie, Oklahoma. That came out this year. It was a non-fiction collection of spooky stories around Oklahoma. So it was a mix of true crime and some legends and ghost stories and stuff.
Yeah, I also enjoy true crime. I try not to get involved. I know true crime kind of gets a bad rep nowadays, or at least true crime enthusiasts anyway get a bad rep. But again, I like the stories of true crime.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, very personable.
Yeah, there's some weird. There's some really weird ones that I've heard. You're just like, oh my lord, some of these people are just dumb.
Yeah. People are people.
I guess the criminal mastermind truly does not exist. I don't know.
So, not that we've allowed to be caught or anything, I guess.
But I think that's all I can talk about today.
Yeah, well, it's been a good chat.
Oh, I was hoping I wasn't. Hope you weren't getting bored. Yeah, I was just kind of rambling on. But I enjoyed having you on, man.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy being on. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Would you like to plug anything or promote anything before you leave?
Yeah, go check out jeffprovine.com. It's got links to all the ghost books and ghost tours, as well as some of the comics work too.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty easy, jeffprovine.com.
All right. You have like a Twitter or anything like that, or just the website?
Twitter at Jeff Provine, and then on Facebook is author Jeff Provine.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, like I said, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. I shall see you guys next time then. Oh dear.